Welcome back to another episode of STEM in Stilettos. This is Sophia Morales, and I am here today with Whitney Walker. And we are going to discuss from intuition to influence, redefining a woman's role in the marketplace. Before I go into a deeper introduction of our guest, however, I would like to invite you to get to know your own self a little bit better. And check out your personal leadership style and your number one pitfall at the Leadership Pitfall Quiz. That URL where you can take that is leadershippitfallquiz.com. And it takes about 60 seconds to get insight into some of your defining characteristics as a leader, as well as a couple of areas of shortcoming you might want to pay close attention to. So that's at leadershippitfallquiz.com. Our guest today, Whitney, is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in addiction, eating disorders, trauma, and spirituality. She also works as a recovery coach and a spiritual guide. She incorporates spiritual concepts into her work, including the return of the divine feminine to our world and moving from a place of fear to a place of love, releasing self-destruction and rejection to embrace unconditional self-love and acceptance. These ideas form the concept of Women Waken, her business and vision for the future. Whitney created the Women Waken podcast, a holistic guide to wellness and abundant self-love, along with an accompanying YouTube channel. So please check it out. You can find all that good information in the show notes below. Welcome, Whitney. I'm so happy to have you here with me today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. So I'm so thrilled to have you back. Now, our audience is business women, female founders. And I know when I was in the corporate world, there were moments when I was like, when I go into the office, I have to just kind of check this girly stuff at the door. How do we balance our femininity with like the masculine, go out there, get it done, get the business launched, get the return for the investors kind of energy, and keep a hold of our female side and not lose ourselves in it?
Yeah, well, it's difficult. It's a challenging line to walk, and it has been for a long time for women. And we've lived in a man's world basically for as far back as history is recorded, in terms of it feels like it's a masculine structure. And so women are asked to fit within that structure and to exemplify that structure rather than being encouraged and asked to share their own gifts and their own unique takes on things. They're asked to fit in and to change themselves in order to match the energy. So I'm a big believer that things can happen slowly and gently. I think that women are meant to have a greater presence in all structures and systems of society, and including business and corporations. And maybe it won't happen overnight that women are allowed to have a more actual feminine presence and touch, not just trying, because right now I feel that if any woman is able to make it, and I'm not saying this is across the board, I could be incorrect, but in most cases, if a woman gets to a high enough position in a business, it's because she's stepped forward with her masculine traits.
Yes.
We have yet to have a divine feminine CEO, I would say, because you have to, just like you said, we walk into these businesses and we think I get to be myself, but quickly we learn that if we want to reach the position we're aiming for, we can't be ourselves. Yet women will eventually need to be themselves in all sectors of society and business. So as I said before, I believe in slow and steady. So it's about being the trailblazers. And I think in that, you have to invite and embrace the feminine principle of gentleness, right? The feminine is about gentle flow and progress. So we allow our essence itself to be the change. We show up and we don't need to put it in others' faces. Like, here's who I am as the feminine energy and you're going to accept it. Just do it. Just start slowly. And this is why, especially, I think it starts at a smaller level. I'm a small business owner. A lot of small business owners, they have the ability to
Yeah.
bring a more feminine quality to their work. Yet women who are stepping into maybe the job of their dreams in a big corporation's role, in a way, they need to walk the fine line, right? But you can still express who you are. I mean, you are who you are, right? Your energy will be known whether they like it or not, right?
one way or another, however
One
you
way
dress
or
it up, right?
another. Now I'm hearing Blondie.
Yeah,
One way or another.
exactly.
Which, like, what a beautiful icon of women and feminine power, right? Because she stepped into
Absolutely.
rock and roll and she still was feminine and brought her own take. And the same thing can happen in those other places. Women can slowly bring and infiltrate those spaces with the divine feminine touch that's so needed.
Yeah, and I think in some ways we already are, as much as we go into the office and we kind of have to check it at the door in many ways. You will I have noticed, let's put it that way. I have noticed, looking at like the statistics and that sort of thing, women-led businesses a lot of times bring in a much better return on investment than the guy-led businesses bring in. And I think a lot of that goes back to women bringing their own special skills to bear over the longer term. In other words, like when I was in corporate, I would show up, in the corporate guise, but I created a safe space for my people. Like there was this bubble as I started to get reports and that kind of stuff that I kind of formed around them that gave them a little bit different microclimate, if you will. And I think women are doing that in some subtle ways in corporate.
Yeah, absolutely. And microclimates are important just for those spaces to exist, just to have, because that's how everything starts. Everything starts by a slow introduction. Even the masculine dominated fields began small. It began just as an introduction of a new way of being, and it became overgrown. But the thing about the feminine, though, is it's not looking to overtake. I don't think that the feminine wants to have 100% feminine dominated industries. It just wants a presence.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's kind of interesting now that you mentioned that. I was talking to somebody the other day, preparing for one of these conversations, and they had noticed that there tends to, when there's an influx of women, the guys tend to depart, which is kind of weird because I think your observation is true. We don't want them to leave. It's not like we set up the environment to force them to leave, but they sort of choose to, which is interesting. A couple of the areas in which this was noticed is like the medical nursing kind of aspect of things. It used to be completely male dominated, and the more women have gone into it, the fewer guys you actually see in that arena. To the point where now, if you ask somebody about nursing, they'll tell you that nurses are women. Which,
Yeah, yeah, and things can shift in that way. And just like you said, it's not because they were run out, it's just because they may not feel as comfortable or familiar with that kind of an environment.
yeah. So, what is it that you see that women bring into business, into the office, that's beneficial as opposed to the guy's approach?
Less ego.
Tell us why ego is a challenge.
Well, I think ego is self-serving. I think about it a lot when I think about the fact that there's never been a female president. And I wonder what our presidency could look like if we had someone in there who wasn't doing it just to prove themselves, who
Mm,
truly had the highest interest of the people. I don't know that we've ever truly had that with a president, some more than others, but not fully. And I'm not saying that every woman is free from ego. None of us are free from ego. And I'm not saying that some women don't have as big of an ego as men, but yet I think that a true someone who's embracing their feminine energy, when they enter into a space, the feminine energy is that which honors cooperation and collaboration. It's not looking for a hierarchical structure. It's looking for a sustainable structure. And what we've
Mm.
seen is that a hierarchical structure is not sustainable. By nature, it will always collapse because we're not meant to exalt someone to the top and then all fall beneath. We're meant to all be in this together.
Yeah,
And
it's not supposed to be a pyramid where people are standing on top of other people.
no, but that's all we've known. Every
Mm.
structure, everything that's been created has formed that way because of ego. It's because some people want, there's like, well, I have to be at the top and I have to be the best and I want to prove something. And not to say that women don't feel that way, but you can still, and we can replace the word prove with express, right? I think the feminine is more about being able to express your unique self rather than trying to force something that's deemed impressive and prove that, right? So I think when things have more of a feminine touch, there's less to prove. There just is more being and letting yourself be expressed and therefore allowing space for everybody to have a place at the table and a voice, that
Mm.
everybody's opinion matters. And that's not what we see. I mean, anybody who's been in a corporate boardroom or space or meeting knows that some people feel like a nothing. They just their voice doesn't matter. And other people, oh gosh, look out. They're going to speak right now. This is a very important person. It doesn't have to be this way. We've just created this. Nobody's
Yeah.
any more important than another. And sure, some people are very talented at what they do and we can appreciate them. But what if we had a leader who didn't hold that over everyone's head? Like, well, I'm the most powerful. I'm the best at this. So you all will, bow to me. The feminine doesn't honor that. And there are speakings of a time before time that's not recorded where societies were led by women, where the
Yeah.
matriarchy was that which led, and it was much more functional, and everybody had their own purpose. We didn't have as much greed, and that's a parable at this point. But in my being, it feels like a knowingness. And
Mm.
talk about a beautiful feminine quality is that which is beyond the five senses. Your clear sentience is a clear feeling. Your clear cognizance is a clear knowing that even though
Right.
it's
And
not
it's
spoken of,
that intuition is what most people call that.
the
Yeah.
intuition, and where you just feel in your being that I know there was another way that this was done. And even though it feels like all we've known, it doesn't mean that it has to go on forever, that everything is about competition and greed and trying to prove yourself and always aiming for profit and growth. That's not sustainable. And that's the other thing that would happen if women were introduced is we would move from a dysfunctional state of infinite growth, which isn't sustainable, to
Yeah.
a place of functioning and saying, hey, why don't we stop trying to build, and just work with what we try to make the best of what we have first and then build on it. Once we know it's stable, it's functional, and everybody's doing well.
Yeah.
We really lost the plot with that on Earth is that we stopped caring that everybody was doing well for some reason. We just said, yeah, it's fine. Some people are really suffering, but we got to keep the growth going. You guys, you can't stop that. Well,
Yeah.
who says? Only the
I
masculine energy says that.
I can remember sitting in economics class in college, and they said that the economy always grows, and I'm like, that doesn't gut check for me because there's gonna be a natural limit.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a natural limit, and if you step back from that broad concept of the economy is always growing, you will notice that there are natural limits and there are natural contractions that happen because guess what? It's finite. The world is, in fact, finite. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a balance, right? Things are meant to be in balance.
Yeah.
And the universe is infinite, but we're having an experience here of how do you come into physicality and learn how to have a reciprocal relationship with everything around you? Because also, a feminine principle is you have to give and receive. And if you try to do just all
Yes.
of one, you'll be depleted. And if you try to just take, then you're not in support of something else. So we are being asked here in this experience on Earth to recognize limits and recognize you can't push something to the point where that thing begins to suffer. But we've done that with the planet Earth We've done that with other human beings. We exploit people, we push people because we say, I'm more important than you. So it's okay if you don't have the
Mhm.
same rights and opportunities. That was never a balance. And so we're in such a state of imbalance on this planet. And until we realize that, yes, in fact, things are finite. The only thing that isn't finite is creation and love. We can create many, many beautiful things, but they have to stay in balance.
Mm. So we've talked a little bit about intuition, and my experience is that women are more tapped into that than guys are, generally speaking. Again, that's a very broad statement, and there are obviously going to be individual variations to that. Um, but how do we as women not just tap into our intuition, but begin to introduce that into a sphere like business or finance or technology, where a lot of times it's just the facts and only what we can measure?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's a slow introduction. It's a slow um, influence that we have. I think that for most anybody that would be listening that wants actual practical understanding, it can't be too radical. So you do have to play by the rules to a certain degree, yet no one's going to stop you from at least offering your ideas or your viewpoints because things have changed over time. There are businesses where a woman was bold enough to introduce a new way of doing things and they realized that it actually worked better that way, that people were happier and more satisfied in their positions. A big part of that is, the women who spoke up and said that your employees need to be heard. You'll have a higher retention rate of employees. You'll have more production in your workforce if you have these approaches. And it took somebody who was willing to face criticism or backlash to just gently offer that. So I think, again, the more that people, again, intuition, when you speak on the things that you intuitively feel could benefit an organization, even if they might see it as too, far into the emotional, empathetic side, things need to be stronger, more firm, more structured, masculine, you can still offer. Because the beautiful thing about, a lot of times or experiences with those settings is men are intuitive as well. And sometimes they'll be able to recognize and say, I can see how that could help. I can see
Mm-hmm.
how that would work. Not all of them will respond that way. Again, not women as well. There'll be women too who are much more masculine. They don't want to hear this, but
Yeah.
some will.
Well, and one of the things that I've noticed with my own intuition is a lot of times I've been able to go, it feels like this. And then I'm able to go and like gather data that supports it, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing that says you have to stop with just the intuitive hit, but you can also now look at customer feedback surveys or production reports or employee surveys or whatever your source of data you need to delve into is, with that intuition in your mind, to find the data that other people may need to be able to embrace the idea and lean into it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we are up on our first break already. Can you believe it?
No.
I know it goes so fast. Uh, for everyone who's joined us here today, so glad you're here with us. And take this opportunity over the break to go out to leadershippitfallquiz.com and go find out what your leadership animal is and hang with us. We'll be right back from the break. Welcome back from the break. Thank you for hanging in with us. This is Sophia Morales, and I am here with Whitney Walker. And we are discussing how you can really bring your feminine side and your intuitive side specifically into the workplace in a way that's more accepted by the people around you than you might imagine it would be. So, question for you, Whitney. Why would we want to do this? Why is it important for women to lean into the fact that we are female? We're not just guys in high heels.
Yeah. Well, I think the number one reason, first of all, is that I think people deserve to be fully expressed as themselves. Anytime we try to inhibit or contort who we are, we're never going to be fully at peace or fully joyful. And that goes for the individual, but it's also the case at large for humanity right now, is that very few people are fully expressed. That's what we came here to do. I always think of humanity as a mosaic where every single person is an integral, imperative part of this gorgeous mosaic, and you need your unique colors and light to come out to make the picture come together. But right now, we live in such a state of fear of fully expressing ourselves, because if we do, we might be abandoned, we might be cast out, we might be fired, we might not find our place. So we stay in fear. So the world, I believe, is what it's meant to be when people fully express themselves. So one way to start, but the question though is for every woman is, what is your feminine, right? There's no one blanket statement about this is what it is to be a feminine woman. Well, what does it mean to you? As I said, when I think of the feminine, it's more of the principles of allowing and not, it's relaxed. It's more in the flow. It's surrender. It's saying what can be. And how do we allow for all the different ideas to come forward? How do we allow for all the different expressions? Because, feminine is equated with water. And yes, water can flow, but it's also an extremely powerful force in certain conditions. So by no means is the feminine just this gentle, lackadaisical force. It's actually remarkably powerful.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, I was kind of feeling this energy of like meandering and exploring like all the places, the cracks and the crevices and the byways and whatever. And business tends to not be very supportive of that sort of thing, right? We have quarterly goals, we have objectives for the year, we've got projects that have to be completed. How do you kind of balance that, bringing everybody out into expression and still making that sort of thing happen?
Yeah. Well, as I was saying, it's because there's so many facets to the feminine. There's a lot to us. We are
There is.
multifaceted, complex creatures. So I know for me, I have a lot of fortitude. When I decide that I want what my next creation will be, I will do what it takes. And the fact is, I mean, all you have to do is look at the act of birth to recognize that a woman is no stranger to force and to even aggression in terms of deciding that something will be, and you will go to great lengths to produce it. I mean, we have to push life out of our bodies and into existence. That's not meandering at all.
Yeah,
That's correct.
exactly. Well, and I when you mention that, I think of my husband's face every time I say this handful of words. It's I have a plan. He's like, uh-oh.
Because he knows that you're going to make it happen. And he's like, oh, geez,
Uh-oh, I am
what's
in for it
coming?
now. Where are we going?
Yeah. No, women are miraculous creators. Obviously, again, the analogy of birth, we are the portal for life, and we will bring it forth with great might. And so when we have a vision, but here's the thing, and this is the beauty and multifaceted component of women, we can be in the sort of nebulous realm of the void, right? From the void comes a creation that's never been. The masculine is very attached to the idea of structure and knowing what is and working with what is, but the feminine knows that there are things that have never been before that are just waiting to be brought forth. but you have to move into that place of more surrender and openness, because you can't bring in the new if you're really attached to the current, right? You never can, whatever currently is. You have to go into that dream space, the creational space. And that's what women can do. But that's when they get their fortitude, is when they see it and they say, oh, this can be you with your plan. You say, oh, my dear husband, I have a plan. I know what can be. And he's like, oh
Yes.
boy, are we going to have to move? Are we going to have to, like, what's going to, are we going to invest money? How long is it going to take? Oh man.
Yeah. And what am I going to have to do? What's my role in all this?
Yeah. Right. But once women grab a hold of that, but again, it's not to prove a point. When you're in the true feminine, at least how I view it, it's not because, again, it's not egoic. It's not like, look what I can do. It's look what can be. Look what can be in existence, in expression. And then we want to create it. And it's a miraculous thing. So that's why women are actually really attuned for business. And they make great business owners and collaborators because they know what it takes to have a vision and bring it forth. But again, like you said, like men have this as well. I mean, we look at some of the greatest innovators, and to this day, most of them are men, because because here's the thing. I will say this.
They get the backing.
They get the backing. They get the backing. They're recognized for it. Women have tons and tons of ideas, but they're just not given a chance. And men come forth with an idea, and it's very scientific based, and it's very, and that's all fine. That's all good. But then we're missing the whole other part of creation, which has nothing to do with science or technology. Again, things are so out of balance now. All we care about is innovating new ideas and creations in those realms. And that's beautiful and wonderful and can create great things. But there's a whole other realm, which is just looking at how can we create better lifestyles and ways of expressing ourselves and being in the world that's more harmonious. Because there's revolutionary ideas around that, but guess what? They don't include
You tell me.
profit. There's no money.
Oh, but sometimes there is.
Sometimes there is. Sometimes there is. And I know we're talking business, but I think that there is also space for women to bring forth ideas that should be honored, not just because they can create billions of dollars in profit, but because they can help billions of people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I've noticed that if you help enough people get what they want, you can also do quite well for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. By no means are, people who bring great gifts meant to, live in squalor. They're meant to have abundance. But the thing is, we're all meant to have abundance, right?
Yeah, exactly. I like that. So, how do you, as a woman, start to get a feel for when it's safe to kind of speak up and to bring forward your gifts, and when it might be better to maybe not so much?
Yeah. Well,
Because I mean, some of us have kids with the sole support in the household, and yeah, a bit of caution is warranted.
yeah. Yeah. And that's why I'm such a proponent of, you don't have to get up on the table and make a declaration that this is what we should do because this is the better way to do it. And this is, I understand that there's women out there who need to keep their job and they want to have growth and they want to have this experience. What I find is that true connection is where people's are more open. So if you want your ideas to be heard, wait until someone is receptive. I think that if we try too hard again to sort of just jump up on our table and say, here's what we can do, a lot of people will just they'll immediately close off. Like, this sounds outlandish. This sounds unreasonable. This person's just, they don't know what they're talking about. But if you, in gentle conversation, share, well, have you thought about this? And this is an idea I've been thinking about. And have your material ready to share, right? If you're that woman and you're in this big corporation you're working for, and you have an idea that you would really love to take off, you find your way. I mean, and this is another thing. Women are incredible in terms of being able to maneuver their way to gently offer something, right? Men tend to kind of like to bulldoze through things,
Yeah.
but women don't have the liberty to do that because they'll be told to get the heck out because they're too much, right?
Yeah, you're being a bee right now, or whatever word they want to put with it. Yeah.
Exactly. You're being crazy. And it's not to say that crazy women haven't been heard in the past. They have, but if you're in that position where you don't have that ability, you can't rock the boat too much, you find your entrances, right? It's kind of like how they say that men always think that they run the household, but women will say, yeah, I make him think that so that I can do it
Yes.
all myself and just
I
hold you
let
to
him
it.
think this, right?
Right? Well, it's the same thing. Just take it to business. Keep agreeing and don't, rage against what is. Just gently kind of introduce a way that you see it could happen and find a commonality between you and the people who will be your audience, your receptor. It's all about gentleness. I just think, again, the feminine, it's if you really want to see change because of how long it's been that women have not been afforded a place at most institutions, tables, all of that, you have to allow it to be something that that the other person wants, but if you told them your plan, they'd say, no, that would never work. So you just kind of have to guide yourself there.
Yeah. Well, and I remember when I was in corporate, I would come with ideas and kind of float them to my peers before I floated them to the boss. And it got me a wealth of information, right? I'll be like, well, has anybody tried this? Oh, yeah, so and so did that a few years ago and it failed. Oh, well, what happened? Oh, well, there was resistance from this quarter and this thing went on and this other thing went on. And so I would get this pile of information on why it hadn't worked in the past, which then would allow me to create a circumstance where it would work.
Yes, exactly. You've cracked you know it. You know all this, you've done it.
So yeah, I did a lot of what I want to say information gathering before I went in to present my stuff, because that way I could address the objections, right? Which is what my peers were giving me. It's like, well, it failed because of this. Oh, okay. Well, let's see how we can make sure it doesn't fail because of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the more that we're able to do our homework and bring forth these ideas, the more we can begin to change things. Because here's the thing is that, and I think I mentioned this earlier, is that truly, if you look at most of our systems, because as you spoke of, people act as if there's infinite resources and infinite growth. That's not accurate, not for where we are, not for the business we're doing. So if we want to gently offer that idea, you have to show the evidence and you have to show why another way could be more advantageous for everybody involved, one that's sustainable, right? One that is more functional, because again, almost every sector of a society at this point, I believe, can be deemed dysfunctional because they're not serving what they ultimately were created and set out to do.
To serve. Yeah,
To
exactly.
serve. So if you work with that, like you're already in that situation, you have the advantage point. You're just introducing the fact that, hey, if we look at this with open eyes and if we're honest with ourselves, we know it's not working. So if this isn't working, how can we shift a little bit into something that is more functional? And I think a lot
Yes.
of people stray away from that because they're out of fear. We've done this. This is how it's been done for so long. It's a boys'
Yeah.
club. We got to stick with this. This is how.
Well, and we tend to be not friends of change. Most humans are not fond of change as much as it's like, oh, well, I'd like that thing over there. I don't want to have to change to go get it. I don't want to have to change to lose the 25 pounds. I don't want to have to change to earn more money. I don't want to, yeah, fill in the blank.
Absolutely. Most people are very change averse. So they stay in their lanes and they stay in their roles. But only when people step out of that, when they blaze new trails and offer new ideas, do things change. And I believe it's the time for that it's the time of the trailblazer and, sort of the rebels who are ready to speak up and to share their views and share what they believe is possible.
Yeah, yeah. I I'm kind of an odd duck in that I tend to have this side of me that really likes change.
Oh, I've told people I'm like
I
change a file. I
Yes,
love
let's
change.
make it different. Let's shake it up. Let's rock the boat. But one of the things I have had to come to accept is most of the world is not that way.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn to kind of speak a language that's less threatening to them. in order to bring forward what I need to bring forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's again, you can't just jump up and claim total radical overnight transformation and nothing less because people will say, get out. So you
Yeah.
offer it gently. And the other thing I would say to anyone listening who has a vision, who has this feeling within them that a new way is possible, that there are other ways to go about this, that I know that I could offer ideas that could make a difference. The most important thing you can invest in is fully and completely believing in what you think is possible and come into a knowingness about it, a knowing that this will someday exist. Basically I'm talking about manifestation, right?
Yeah.
When we look
Or
around our world,
founding a company, right?
yeah,
Because the first person you have to sell on that this can be a thing in the world is yourself.
yes,
Because you're not going to sell anybody else on it. You're not going to get investors. You're not going to get co-founders or your first employees on board until deep within yourself. It's like this is a thing. It's no longer that I see the possibility, but that it's coming into the world.
yes. Yeah, knowing without a shadow of a doubt that it can be and will exist it's the reason everything you see around you exists. Nothing exists without somebody having a full-hearted knowingness. That's what brings things into physicality. It's the process of creation. First you have a thought, then you speak on it, you declare it, and then you act on it and it comes to be.
Yeah, and you don't always have to know the how or
Never. Doesn't matter.
it's all you almost never know the how. In fact, when you look back, it's like, wow, what I thought might have been the how wasn't even remotely close to the path we ended up taking to get there. But what I've found is most important is that vision and holding that vision really clear of what can be, and then taking the next logical step in that direction.
Absolutely. Just take the next step, do the next thing that you can
Yeah,
do towards that.
I love that. So, hmm, how do we kind of take this and break it down and make it a little pragmatic? Do you have any kind of, what I want to say, guides or rules of thumb that you live by to be fully expressed, if you want to use that language, to bring your concepts to life?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the initial step that's most important is to look at how you're already doing it, right? You got it. I think the foundation of starting something new is recognizing how do I see myself as a creator? How do I know that I can trust myself, believe in my ideas? We want to look at experiential evidence to show that, you know what? I am able to do this. Look at where I am today. I'm 40 years old and I'm doing X, Y, and Z that 20 years ago I would never have dreamed of. So you start there and you say, okay, I know that I'm someone who's capable, but I know it also took 20 years to get here. So how can I think about just the small steps to take rather than this pressure of, oh my gosh, this will never happen. It's too big. It's too overwhelming. What can the steps be? You need to really see yourself as someone, you've already done it,
Yeah,
right? So the next thing you want to do, recognize, of course I can do it because I've already done it in a different shade and different color, but I know I'm capable.
exactly. I love that. We are up on our second break already. And I guess right before I throw this to the break, I guess what I want to put out there, because a lot of women I know are very resistant to like sales and the sales process. And well, I don't know how to sell. Um, and what I'd like to submit for your consideration is the number of women who have been Girl Scouts and who have absolutely crushed it with the cookie sales. So the ways you have already done it, just lean into that, embrace that, and take the leadership pitfall quiz over the break, leadershippitfallquiz.com, and hang with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Sophia Morales. I am here with the amazing and wonderful Whitney Walker. And before the break, we were talking about um, how you start to solidify and clarify your vision, and so that you can persuade other people to be on board with your vision and to get on the train that you're driving, to bring your intuitive vision, if you will, your business concept, your software as a service, whatever it is you're working on, into reality. And I love that you pointed out that it's really nice to sit and review how you are already doing it. What are some thought exercises we can do to kind of pull through the conscious resourcefulness of that? Because a lot of times I know as women, we're taught to go, oh, well, I couldn't ever, whatever it is, right? And we'll have a whole list of reasons why: time, or the kids, or commitment to the family, or blah, 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 blah. There's always a million reasons not to. And one of them oftentimes is I don't have time, I don't have money, or I don't know how. So how do we deliberately step into a space of resourcefulness instead?
Yeah. Well, I think, again, it's about recognizing that if we actually take an honest look back at our lives, there are things that we've accomplished that we don't really know how. I know I had this experience and many others where we think, gosh, I went through this period of my life where I was going to school and working part-time and working towards this, and I don't know how I did it, but I did it. So what tends to happen is that when you set your intention for what you want to create, the universe will bring into your life the things that you need. And it may be challenging, but you will be able to find a way. It's just like you said, it's letting go to the how, just as you said. You just have to really establish what it is that you want to do. And then as things present themselves, then you just say yes to it. And you don't worry too much about how it will come together. But what I found is that it's a lot of it has to do with, releasing any resistance, because most of us have a resistance to letting go of how we think things should look or how they should play out. So we're really attached to, okay, well, if I'm going to start a business, it means I have to start with this step and do this step and do that. Well, it's not always the case. Like, just start doing what you want to do and then see what happens. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like anybody says, you're like, well, I want to write a book. Okay, well, do you write? No, never. I never write. Well, then how do you expect to write a book? You just start writing, just do it, Do you want to be a speaker? Well, then find places where you can go start speaking. Do you speak? No, do it. Like, start doing it now. Start doing the things that you want to do, and then recognize that, other things will come into your path to lead you there. Because like you said, I don't have the time. I don't have this or that. Well, you do. You actually do have time. And most of the women that I've read about who gain great success, it's kind of what I said. Like, they ended up sitting in a closet at 5 a.m. to write their book before their kids woke up because they felt they had to do it. They just needed to make the time. And I'm not saying to burn yourself out, but I'm saying that once you set your intention, you'll find what you need. Like, we can do the things we want to do, but when we make excuses for it, then it definitely won't happen. But if we open ourselves to the idea that if this wants to be birthed, or if I want to birth this badly enough, it can be. But you can also ask for help, right? Another thing is
yes, please.
Yeah.
Let's say that again. You can what?
You can ask for help. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to do this alone. You can outsource. You can ask people. That's another thing that, women have been conditioned to feel like they have to do everything on their own or else it won't get done. And that's not true. You can definitely solicit help and ask for advice. And another thing to do is, if you're in this place where you're like, I don't know how I can make this happen, well, talk to somebody who has made it happen, right? Go out and seek somebody who has done what you want to do. I'm a mental health therapist. And when I decided once COVID hit that I could start my own private practice, I was so scared. I was like, I can't do that. I handle taxes and handle bills and handle this, and I can't do it. But I was like, well, a lot of people are doing it. So clearly I can. So what
Yeah, the knowledge is out there. The skills and abilities exist.
Yeah,
Yes.
it exists. It is, but we have this block. We think, well, not me. Like, how could
Mm,
I do that? That's too much. And so what I did is I went on LinkedIn and found everybody who was doing what I wanted to do, established therapeutic practice with kind of more spiritual tenets. And I just would message all of them and say, hey, would you be open to a quick 10, 15-minute call so I could find out your path? I asked like 50 different people. Turns out the path wasn't that complicated, but I had a fear, right? It was like that, the
yeah.
change, the part of like, well, if I take that leap, I have to put myself out there as the front of my business. That really scared me. I got very accustomed to being an employee and not being the face of anything. It felt safer. It felt easier. It felt like less commitment. But I knew I wanted that freedom. So you also have to recognize what is it that you're wanting through this. And if your desire for those things are great enough, you absolutely can make it happen, but you have to know your why. Just like we started, know your why, and you can know how matters. It will happen. You just have to decide why you want it, and everything will come into place. The staircase, right? Set your goals up in the clouds and then build your staircase one step at a time towards them. And you will find that you will be supported. You don't have to do it alone, and you can find other people who have done something like you've done before.
Yeah. And it's really nice to have what I want to say, a role model, I guess is the word I'm looking for, that you can look at, reach out to, talk to. Um, and I know as women, a lot of times we feel like we don't have role models, right? Especially in science and tech, there are so few women to start with. Uh, but the thing that I've found is we have what I could describe as like a role model slash ally. In other words, this person may not look exactly like us. In other words, they may not be female, they may not be of color, they may not be whatever, fill in the blank. But they are simpatico with us. We have good connection and empathy with them. They're willing to share. That's where to start.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter that they don't look exactly like you or live life exactly the way you do, uh, as long as there's that simpatico connection there and they're willing to share in an honest and forthright way. And even if you don't know somebody like that right now, as you pointed out, you can get to know them. It's pretty easy to connect to people nowadays.
It is, which is a wonderful gift, right? People used to have to write letters every day for months to actually get someone's attention who was doing something they wanted to do or just come across them. But now you can find people and connect with them and ask them. It never hurts to ask.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing that I love about asking is it's telling yourself yes. Every time you ask, you're telling yourself yes. The other person, they may weigh in yes or no, but if you don't ask, you've told yourself no. And so
Yeah.
tell yourself yes, ask. Give them the opportunity to sign on to your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like, the word that just popped up in my mind is like, know your worth. Like, know that you deserve that. You deserve to ask. You're not being demanding. You're not being entitled. You're just asking because you deserve your expression. Like, let's say your role model is someone who brought their creation to life. They birthed it, they made it, you admire them. Well, you have the same seedling of a creation within you. You have the same desire. You are just as valuable and worthy and deserving of bringing that forth as anyone else. So
Right.
when we tend to ask someone who's already achieved something, again, this is a very masculine mindset, but we've created this hierarchical structure where we think, well, who am I to talk to this person who's super
Mm-hmm.
successful and very established? Like,
Exactly.
what
And
am I just a peon?
I'm being in it, what do I want to say, selfish. I'm inconveniencing them, that sort of thing. But I think what we forget when we tell ourselves this is that one of the things that gives people a lot of satisfaction is knowing that they have helped someone else, that they've given someone else an opportunity, a hand up, a door in, whatever the thing is. And when you don't ask them, you cheat them of the opportunity for that feeling of fulfillment.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's one of the best feelings ever when someone says, wow, That's so incredible that you do this. Could I have a little bit of your time to find out how you did? It's like, oh yes.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it in a while, but you're right. I did do this, didn't I? Again, going back to, we have to give ourselves credit for how far we've already come, right? Because
Hmm.
everybody has something to show for their time on this planet, no matter where you are. And there's
Yeah.
someone who looks at you and your life is something that they're only dreaming of.
And isn't that something? I was talking to someone the other day that I really look up to. In fact, she was on my list of like A-list guests, right? And I reached out to her and we had the conversation the other day. And as we were talking, um, I've just started this YouTube channel, and we're just getting some traction and this kind of stuff. And she's like, I would really like to understand how you're working your YouTube channel because I can't get mine to do anything. I'm like, wow. I do have something to offer. Look at this.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that so much because it's so true. And again, that to me is a very feminine principle. We're all just helping each other out. We're offering, hey, you do this really well. That's awesome. You do this really well, rather than this scale of someone's up here and you're down here. We're all equal with gifts and abilities and achievements that we can be sharing with one another. And I think, you asked early on is what changes when the feminine is introduced. We all start having a better time because we feel our own worth and value. We feel the gifts. We know them. We don't say, well, I don't have much to offer because I'm not like her. Of course you do. Everybody has something to offer. You can share with her how you got your YouTube jiving, and she can share with you whatever achievement she had. We're all just helping each other out. Nobody any greater or less than one another. And when we have that greater sense of equality in terms of everybody has value and we're all just sharing it, we have such a better time. And think of how much can happen when we all start working more collaboratively and we're not as competitive, right? That's another
Yeah.
distinction, that the moving into the feminine is moving from competitiveness into collaboration, cooperation with one another for the highest good of all.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about collaboration as opposed to competition is when you cooperate, when you put all of your skills into a pile, there's this multiplication effect that happens. You amplify what you have going on uh, when you're in the group and everybody's bringing their strengths, as opposed to when everybody's in competition and in their own little silos and going off wherever the energy gets dispersed.
Yes. Yeah, it goes in all different directions. And kind of like I was saying, like dysfunction, right? When we are all aligned and the energy is not dispersed, can you imagine how powerful that is? When all things are flowing, co coinciding with one another collaboratively. It's very, I mean, and this is when I get more esoteric, but it's the idea that, humanity as a whole is an expression into the universe and it's meant to be something beautiful. And right now, with all the dispersed energy, it's not as strong as it could be, but it really could be something phenomenal if we all came together and agreed to allow our unique light and gifts to coincide with and mingle with one another.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
exactly. And there are many ways that this can happen in this world, right? We talk in this really general, esoteric, and maybe ungrounded, airy fairy if you're coming from the scientific world. Uh, but the facts are, if you look at what goes on when groups of people come together and everybody brings their brilliance, and you get this multiplication effect.
Mhm.
Um, it's undeniable that there's something happening here, whether you subscribe to the area fairy or not. It's important to look at the fruits of what's going on. And speaking of fruits, we're coming down to the end of our interview already. I know, I'm sad too. But I guess what I'd like to do is just to mention to the listeners, because we're so glad that you joined us here today, that in the show notes, there are a number of ways that you can reach out and get in contact with Whitney if you're interested in connecting with her. And would you like to share what happens if they connect via Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love to connect with listeners of I have a podcast called Women Waken, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, all platforms. And Zofia was a lovely guest on it. I had a blast with her. But I love to connect with my listeners through Instagram. If they message me on there, directly add me on there. I like to pull a tarot card for you if you reach out. I'm a tarot reader, an oracle reader. So I like to do that. And I run women's groups every week for my listeners, my audience. So that's also something you can join in if you find me. So whoever you are listening, if you like our conversation today, I'd love to get to know you, because also a big, powerful thing happens when women come together and we join together and we meet together in groups and share our thoughts, because that echoes out into other
Yeah,
sectors.
absolutely. And the other thing I think I will mention around connecting, um, there are amazing things that come out of making connections, even if it's not obvious to you on its face why you would want or need to connect to this person. If you feel inclined to connect to that person, do it. Uh, because that's one of the ways that resourcefulness comes to light. Um, because it's very easy to look at myself or Whitney and go, okay, I know which box to put her in, and I know what box to put her in. Uh, but we're all much more multidimensional than that and have amazing backgrounds that are sometimes unsuspected. So go ahead and reach out. And let's see, I guess it's just time for me to wrap up. I would like to invite you to join us next week, where we are going to follow a female founder's journey from engineer to marketer. And we will be talking with Rosie Pongratz next week on that topic. So come and check it out then. And until then, go out, be bold, be beautiful, and be amazing.